Good morning, ladies, and welcome back. Have you ever asked yourself, why am I so lonely? Or have you ever said to the Lord, Lord, I feel so alone? It's a real feeling that just sometimes overpowers you, feeling disconnected, not belonging, not being part of, as if you didn't matter to anyone. And you look around you and you see so many people happy, or somebody's in their life, or they're married, they have children, or they've accomplished success in their lives, and or you look at the beautiful people and people in Hollywood and successful people, and they're surrounded by so many, and you say, wow, and here I am all alone. You know, David felt like that. King David, he says in Psalm 69 and verse 8, it was the time when he said, even my own brothers pretend they don't know me, they treat me like a stranger. He felt isolated, cut off, alone. One time he even had to hide and run for his life. Perhaps at times where he said, Lord, have you abandoned me? Have you forgotten me? And I think of so many times when I speak with women and they kind of feel the same way. They feel alone, left out, not belonging, not fulfilled. They believe that if they were to be married, or if they had children, if they had more money, if they were more successful, then they would be happy. Then they would not feel alone. Then they would not feel insignificant. But you know, in reality, the truth is that to overcome that feeling of being alone, not belonging, no one caring, that you don't matter to anyone, you need to be connected to God. That's just the way it is, because we are spiritual beings first. Someone said, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And yet we live the opposite. We are like human beings thinking we're having a spiritual experience. We were created for our Maker, for His pleasure, and for His glory. And I think of when He created the heavens and the earth in the very beginning, He said everything was good. He made, it says in Genesis 1:31, it says, then God looked over all that He had made, and He saw that it was excellent in every way. This is all happened on by the sixth day. Everything was excellent, everything was perfect, everything was good, everything was prepared for man. And then in verse 2, chapter 18, after God saying that everything was so good and everything was excellent, everything was perfect, and the Lord says, it is not good. But Lord, you said everything was good, everything was excellent. It is not good for man to be alone. See, even though we were created first and foremost to be in a relationship with God, yet He knew that we needed someone of flesh and blood, that we could not be alone. And so He understands that feeling. That's why He wants you to remember that He will never leave you and He will never forsake you. He will always be with you, no matter what you may be going through. And perhaps you're feeling alone and loneliness. It's a legitimate reason. There's a tragedy that's happened in your life. You've suffered some kind of a loss, whether it was the job you were counting on, or the home that you had worked so hard for, or the relationship or the marriage or your children. Many different reasons that we can feel alone and forgotten. And there's a process that needs to be that we need to go through when we experience loss in our lives. And God's strength and grace will help us to overcome that loss and be able to continue our lives with His grace and His strength. And so He gives us the ability to change the things that we can change. If it's your loneliness is because you're just looking at things from your perspective and not seeing them through the eyes of God. And you seem to think everybody else has it all together except you, and even God doesn't really care, and God doesn't really love you, and you don't really matter to Him. All these lies that the enemy puts into our minds to isolate us and cut us away first and foremost from God and then from other people. You belong to a fellowship, you belong in a ministry, and it's like you seem to think that everybody is looking at you or doesn't care about you or is gossiping about you or doesn't like you. These can be really wrong perceptions, and you need to ask God for wisdom and discernment to understand where are you really looking into things through your own eyes, or are you looking into the situation through the eyes of God? Because when we see things through God's perspective, there's always hope. Amen? Because God is a God of hope. And so He desires for us to come to Him in those moments of loneliness, in those moments that we feel like no one cares, that He can embrace us and remind us that He cares for us, that He loves us with an everlasting love. And then there are times when we need to really also reach out to other people, because I think one of the greatest things that can help us in times of feeling alone is to reach out. There's always someone who is hurting more than you. There's always someone that has suffered a greater loss than you. There's always someone that you can encourage. Even in your pain, even in your loss, you can be of an encouragement to someone else. And by doing that, you yourself will be strengthened and encouraged. So look at the situation and see where it's a reality that you're feeling lonely and by yourself because you've suffered a loss, and that is a legitimate feeling, and God will help you with that. But then also look at the times that you're feeling lonely because maybe you're comparing yourself to someone else and you're thinking that nobody cares and you don't matter to anyone. That is a lie. Look around you. God will put people in your life that will bless you and care for you and love you and pray for you and stand with you. I think of different situations in the Bible that tells us of realities when these people felt alone. And it says that Adam was alone in a perfect environment, and yet God was able to come and give him Eve. Abraham was abandoned by Lot. Job stood alone and misunderstood by his friends. Jesus in the garden, when he was praying and struggling in the Garden of Gethsemane and wanted the disciples to stand with him and pray with him, he felt all alone and they fell asleep. Even Jesus on the cross, he said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? So, if you feel alone today because you have suffered a loss and you're going through maybe some very difficult changes in your life, God is with you. God will not leave you nor forsake you. He says in Hebrews 13:5, he says, I will never leave you. John 15:15 says, Jesus calls us his friends. John 14:26 says, with Jesus we're never alone. Deuteronomy 31:6 says, he goes with us and he never leaves us. Isaiah 49:15 says, can a nursing mother forget her child? She may, but I will never. A nursing mother, there's nothing more intimate and more beautiful than that. And yet, can a mother forget her child? Yes, there are mothers who forget their children, but God will never forget his children. And you are one of his child. You are one of his children whom he loves and cares for. And Romans 8:35 says, who can separate us from the love of God? Who can separate us from the love of God? And so I encourage you today, if you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling by yourself, encourage yourself in the Lord and reach out to someone else. Ask someone to stand with you in prayer. Do not stay alone, but reach out and say, my sister, can you pray with me? Can you stand with me? And God will grant you His grace and His favor, and you will overcome the sense of being alone and no one cares. Yes, there are many who care, but most of all, God cares. So remember, do not be alone, because God said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. God bless you. And until we meet again, don't just have a good day, but have a God day.